that they're maybe not exhaustive, but they're very descriptive and they're very powerful. Finally, the entire internet. And when you think about it, what is the internet but a collection of documents? I mean, now it's all muddled up by Flash and JavaScript and YouTube, but there's still a lot of text out there, and we can use it all at once. I mean, why not? If I was Google, there's no reason why I couldn't run my program on their global data center and produce some works using the entire internet. It might take a few years, but it's possible. And so these are the kind of things that we can start to think about, now with software like this. We can produce works with the world's content. So that's all. All the code was written in Perl. I use SQLite 3 as my database. I owe a great lot of time and energy saved to CPAN, the Comprehensive Perl Authors Network, which is a list of modules. Perl, as Sam mentioned, people have noticed that Perl is great with words. And so there's a huge collection of modules called the Lingua EN namespace, Lingua English. And I'm using a ton of modules to do sentence detection, to do phonemic decomposition, to do syllable counting, and so my technical implementation a lot of that was based on just what was available in Perl. All the code that I wrote is licensed under the artistic license and is available online at that URL. Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes?
You said that it was very difficult to track the number of syllables from line to line. How difficult is it to detect rhymes?
The rhymes, I kind of invented my own method. So I found Carnegie Mellon does a lot of text-to-speech work, and as a part of it, they've published a dictionary of words and then all the sound elements that compose the words, the phonemes. So to do rhyming, what I did was I counted backwards from the end of a word until I found a vowel sound. So I wanted the last vowel sound to be my rhyme sound. So if I don't know if I can. So if you look at this AE1N, I detected that by counting backwards in the list of phonemes of a word and saying, okay, well, the last phoneme was a consonant, was N. I want to keep going until I find a vowel sound. So as soon as I found it, I stop it, I stick the phonemes together as a string, and then I store that in the database. And when I do that for every sentence, then I get a listing of all the sounds. So I'm just doing string matching is really all I'm doing in the end. A problem arises when I find a word that's not in the Carnegie Mellon dictionary. I can't do anything then. I don't know how I'm going to do a failback from that. So right now, if I don't find a word in Carnegie Mellon's dictionary, it just doesn't get a rhyme sound. Any other questions?
Just a comment about that. There should be, I think the dictionary is not the only way. There's algorithmic ways there are filters that give you phonemes from it. So I know there's a question there. It struck me one of the things about that algorithm is that gave you rhymes like bluntly and crazy, which I'm not a poet. I'm not going to argue about it.
Yeah.
But it struck me that there's maybe a simple modification there that says that the last sound is a vowel sound, and then what you want to use is something more than just the last vowel sound.
Right.
The other thing that struck me was that in your syllable counting, your first two haiku looked like the problem that it had was distinguishing cases where ed, a final ed, is a separate syllable, and other cases where it's not. And that's another thing that you probably could add.
Sure, yeah.
But the thing that struck me the most is a philosophical question. It's one where you're going back to the beginning, or back early in the beginning when you're talking about, these are the things that you want to try to do. In your goals, you included that you wanted to be minus human, but plus human emotion.
Sure.
And I thought that raises a kind of an interesting philosophical tension.
Well, my goal is, in working with content already written, is to say, well, I'm going to reappropriate whatever the intention of this person was. I'm going to take whatever it is they're talking about, and they're talking about glory fading, and I'm going to take it out of their short story, their novel, and I'm going to stick it into a poem. So I'd like to think that the emotion takes place with the reader. The reader reads the poem and is struck by the words, feels emotion, finds meaning in the act of reading the poem. The intent is in the authorship. So what I'm subtracting is the kind of will of the author in producing the poem. I'm minusing that intent and just leaving what is left with the reader and interpreting the poem and finding emotion in themselves.
There's a philosophy of art thing here. There's a philosophy of art question here.
Yeah.
Minsky would say art is a process that goes from intent to emotion.
Sure.
It's a communication process.
Right.
So you're saying we want to split these things
right.
because maybe it's more complicated.
Right. And that Charles Hartman, who I mentioned, that's when he's talking about computer poetry, that's how he justifies it to himself, in that he thinks that the meaning the reader finds on that end of the process is he thinks it's important, and it comes back to a philosophy of art question. Some artists might not value that part of the process. So.
At our poetry group, a poet remarked that reading these poems with their awesome juxtaposition and their reappropriation inspires his own work, and he wrote some of them down and took them with him. Something I like about this project is that it does, it's kind of like divination or otherworldly things that tend not to get taken seriously when you activate, that kind of radical difference and juxtapose them like that. It can be a source for the creative process.
Mm-hmm.
It's connections to the cage, right? Sort of music.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Any other questions? Yeah.
I think it speaks something to the power of the human mind to find patterns in things when you just found these completely disparate sentences that looked so much like they fit together that you thought your program was messing up.
Yeah. I was convinced I'd have to, come up with some, I can I was convinced I was going to have to, do something different to get random numbers. I was convinced my pseudo random number generator was just spitting out consecutive integers because it's spooky. But again, it just gets back to this hypothesis: if you just need a large enough corpus, you just gotta. Because when I was working with the 600-line Borges corpus, in no way was I getting these kinds of. I mean, this first one, this was kind of a fluke. This is unique among the works I produced using the Borges corpus, because there's just so few lines. It really this didn't work as well. But it was very good to kind of prove that, you can get that accidental consistency with a big enough list of sentences.
Was the corpus 600 lines or 600 words? 600 lines.
The Borges was 600 lines. I don't know how many sentences that was. Gutenberg was 1,000 lines, 440 sentences. So you can work out some averages there. But,
Can you give us a sense of the productivity in terms of the ratio of things that you look at and say that, and to things that you look at and say, geez?
Well, let's see. I do a lot of haiku because they're just easy. You get good results with haiku. I've done some sonnets and a couple other longer pieces, and the ratio is very favorable. And I'd say I probably keep about 70% of what it generates. The problem, especially with the Gutenberg corpus, is there are a lot of sentences that are footnote or side note or just other, IBID 365, things like that will just ruin the composition. And sometimes it looks great and it works, but most of the time it doesn't look good. So that's what gets more in the way, are those sentences that aren't really sentences that are just left there. And that kind of comprises most of that 30% that I just threw away. But I'm slowly compiling a list of these. And the sonnets are surprisingly good. I've been doing topical sonnets, so I'll say give me a sonnet about death, life, and rebirth, and you can really feel it, and it really works. And I've kept all but I think one or two of the sonnets. I mean, they've been working out surprisingly well. But certainly favorable. I don't have to wait very long before I find one that I really want to keep. So. Yeah.
So could we see it in action? Could we maybe have one made on the fly and check it out?
I considered that, but after last year's senior presentations, when things like that went horribly wrong, I opted to leave out the live performance. I would oblige by SSHing home, but my computer is asleep and not on the network, so I can't. But I think in my spare time I'm going to make a web interface to this, so you can use it online.
That was my question. Whether or not you can make this available.
Yeah, I mean, you can go download it. Yeah, I want kind of my goal is to make a web interface where anyone can go and just give me a poem and pick the corpus you want, and something like that. But it's nothing yet. Anything else? Thank you very much.